Chapter 4. Misunderstanding Multiply. Vic stood near the decorative fountain of the Grand Seoul Hotel, observing rather than participating in the social chaos of the launch of a prominent Korean designer's summer collection. As C7's recognized fashion icon, he received regular invitations to these events but typically sent polite regrets. Tonight, however, was different. His eyes tracked Sera, whose tall, elegant form was unmistakable among other models. She wore a striking architectural gown from the new collection, the fabric seemingly defying gravity around her slender frame. This was the third fashion circus Vic had attended in 10 days, a frequency that had manager Kando raising suspicious eyebrows. Vic had offered elaborate explanations for his sudden interest in gathering industry research for potential solo projects, cultivating brand relationships, and evolving his style. The truth was embarrassingly simple. He was following Sera's work schedule and dedicating himself to tracking a celestial body using satellite technology. Their conversation at the Louis Vuitton afterparty had left an impression he couldn't shake. The shared grief over their deceased pets formed an unexpected connection, but her understanding of his metaphorical speech seized his interest. Few people made the effort to interpret his abstract expressions. Vic had hoped their paths would cross again, but after a week without contact, he had resorted to more deliberate methods. Hence his presence at a swimwear launch yesterday where he'd felt profoundly out of place, and a jewelry showcase the day before, slightly more comfortable but still clearly not his scene. Designer Kim Min-ho, the evening's honoree, approached with a puzzled smile. "Vic," the designer greeted him. 3 fashion events in 1 week? The world must be ending. Vic smiled politely. The stars aligned in unusual patterns recently. I'm following their guidance. Designer Kim chuckled, used to Vic's enigmatic speech. Well, whatever constellation led you here, I'm flattered. Though I must admit, I didn't think minimalist avant-garde was your aesthetic. I contain multitudes of contradictory appreciations, Vic smoothed out. Your collection speaks in fascinating, structural dialects. This seemed to satisfy the designer, who nodded grandly before being pulled away by an eager journalist. Vic sipped his sparkling water, scanning the crowd again for Sera. She had disappeared momentarily, perhaps changing outfits for the second showcase. He checked his watch, calculating how long to stay to avoid appearing rude. This is becoming a pattern. The voice behind him nearly spilled Vic's drink. He turned to find Sera standing there, now wearing a sleek pantsuit that transformed her from an ethereal creature into a powerful businesswoman with just a wardrobe change. "Sera," he acknowledged, maintaining his usual calm exterior despite his internal surprise. 3 events in 1 week, she noted, echoing designer Kim's observation. Quite the coincidence. The universe works in mysterious symmetries, Vic offered vaguely. Sera's perfectly shaped eyebrow arched skeptically. Does the universe also have access to my booking schedule? Vic felt a desert heat creeping up his neck. That would be presumptuous of the cosmos. But not impossible for C7's Vic? There was amusement, rather than accusation in her tone. I may have developed a sudden interest in fashion events, he admitted. Specifically occasions featuring me, Sera clarified. Vic met her gaze directly. Your presence creates harmony in otherwise chaotic environments. That's either the most poetic or convoluted way someone has admitted to following me around. I prefer orbital trajectory, Vic suggested. Less stalker-like implications. Sera studied him introspectively. Well, since you've gone to such lengths to engineer these coincidences, perhaps we should make the next one more straightforward. Vic's heart bounced out of his chest. I am open to cosmic intervention. I am having breakfast at the Han River Park tomorrow morning before my photo shoot, Sera said directly. 8 a.m., at the cafe near Banpo Bridge. If the universe happens to guide you there, I wouldn't object to company. Without waiting for his response, she turned and glided toward the main event area. He took a steady breath, reminding himself that this was what the dating project was meant to accomplish. Yet the prospect of a planned meeting with Sera, not a planned brand event or chance encounter, felt significantly more daunting than any concert performance. As he prepared to make a graceful exit, his phone vibrated with a message from manager Kando. "Why am I getting calls about you attending a swimwear show yesterday? Please tell me this sudden fashion obsession isn't going to cause a PR situation." No situation. Just exploring new constellations. The mirrored walls of Seoul Arts Academy's main dance studio reflected 20 dancers as they followed Tina Kim's fluid movements. Each of her instructions served a clear purpose. "Connect your breath to the movement," she directed, demonstrating a complex turn sequence. The exhale powers the rotation, the inhale centers you for the next phrase. From the back row, Jake observed intently. He had arrived early for the advanced contemporary class, selecting a spot that offered the best view while keeping him somewhat inconspicuous. Despite his efforts to blend in, his presence had sparked a flurry of light bulb moments among the other students, as evidenced by their whispers and subtle phone photos that he pretended not to notice. Tina nodded slightly when he entered, treating him like any other student. This both relieved and disappointed him. He wanted regular treatment, but part of him hoped she might remember their moment at Madison Square Garden. "Now partner up for the contact improvisation section," Tina instructed, moving through the room. "Remember, this isn't about arranged movement, it is about responding to your partner's momentum and energy." Jake glanced around as the other dancers quickly paired off, many casting hopeful glances but hesitating to approach C7's Machna directly. Before the awkwardness could escalate, Tina clapped her hands. "I will demonstrate with." Her eyes scanned the room, landing on Jake, our new student. Jake stepped forward, hyper-aware of the others watching. In C7's choreography, every movement was meticulously planned and practiced. Improvisation wasn't part of their performance vocabulary. "The foundation of dance improvisation is listening with your body," Tina explained to the class as she positioned herself opposite Jake. "Not anticipating or controlling, but responding to your dance partner." She extended her arm toward Jake, palmed up a simple invitation. He responded by placing his palm against hers, maintaining light contact. "Now we begin a conversation without words," she continued, moving slowly around him, their palms remaining connected. "Each action is both a response and a new question." Jake followed her lead, allowing his body to adapt to her movements rather than initiating his own. Years of dance training had made him exceptionally aware of his body in space, but this improvisational dialogue was unfamiliar territory. "Don't think," Tina instructed quietly for his ears only. "Your body knows what to do if you stop planning every move." The gentle criticism struck home. Jake realized he was assessing each response rather than feeling the movement. He took a deep breath and tried to surrender to the improvisational flow. Their movement became more fluid, more connected. As Tina leaned her weight slightly toward him, Jake responded instinctively, creating a counterbalance that allowed them to establish a shared center of gravity. When she sank lower, he naturally rose higher, maintaining the balance between them. "Yes," Tina approved, loud enough for the class to hear. "This is listening with your body." For the next few minutes, they demonstrated the principles of dance pair improvisation, their movements forming a dialogue that required constant presence and adaptation. Jake forgot about the students, his idol identity, and even his nervousness about Tina. There was only the immediate conversation of movement and balance. Jake felt weak when they finally separated, as if they'd shared something more intimate than a dance demonstration. Tina's expression remained neutral, but he thought he detected attention in her look. "Thank you," she addressed him formally before returning to class. "Now, everyone tries with their partners. Remember, there are no planned sequences, just instinct responses." As the others began working, Tina circulated through the room offering guidance. Jake partnered with a nervous dance major who could barely make eye contact with him. Their improvisations stuttered and felt awkward compared to the flow he had experienced with Tina. Jake kept paying close attention to Tina's teaching throughout the class. Her approach was unlike any dance instructor he'd worked with, less focused on perfection and more on intuitive expression. It was both unfamiliar and compelling to someone trained in the precision-oriented world of choreography. When class concluded, Jake lingered, methodically gathering his things while the studio emptied. He had rehearsed various approaches for speaking with Tina privately, but all his prepared lines felt suddenly inadequate. "Your technique is exceptional," Tina commented as she collected her notes, not looking directly at him. "But you dance from here," she tapped her temple, "not from here." Her hand moved to her heart. Jake blinked, taken aback by her directness. "I was trained to prioritize precision." "I know. I have seen C7's performances." She finally looked at him. "Technically flawless." Something in her tone suggested this was not entirely a compliment. "But," Jake prompted. "But sometimes perfection can become a cage," she said, gathering her water bottle and towel. "Your body can do remarkable things. I wonder what would happen if you let it speak for itself, instead of only executing what has been choreographed for you." The observation felt uncomfortably perceptive, as if she'd glimpsed something about him that he barely acknowledged to himself. "Is that why you film our classes?" Tina asked casually. "To study different approaches to movement." Jake froze. "What?" Tina's expression remained neutral. "Yesterday. And the day before. You were in the observation area with a camera. Extremely focused. Very intense." Heat rushed to Jake's face. "I was not, I mean. Most people ask permission before filming a professional's teaching methods," she continued, her tone unemotional rather than accusatory. "I am sorry," Jake managed, mortification replacing his calm composure. "I should have asked. I was just researching dance styles." Tina suggested, offering him a graceful exit. Jake seized the explanation gratefully. "Yes. For creative purposes." Tina didn't seem fully convinced. "Next time, just ask. I don't mind being filmed for educational purposes, but it is courteous to ask permission." "Of course," Jake agreed quickly. "It won't happen again." Tina studied him for a moment, her expression softening slightly. "You know, for someone so physically confident on stage, you seem very uncomfortable having a casual conversation." The observation was so accurate that Jake couldn't help but laugh. "That's obvious?" "Just a bit." A small smile played on her lips. "Would it help if I pretended not to know who you are?" "You remember me?" The question escaped before Jake could censor it. Tina blinked, perhaps surprised or recognizing his straightforwardness. "From C7? Everyone knows who you are." "No, I meant..." Jake hesitated, then decided to take the risk. "From New York. Madison Square Garden. 6 months ago." Tina's expression changed subtly, but she gave nothing away. "I teach hundreds of students, Jake. If we have met before, I am afraid it wasn't memorable enough to recall specifically." The formal address and cool response felt like a friendly, but formal closing. Jake nodded, accepting the setback with outward grace while his mind raced to recalibrate. Had he imagined the connection? Has he mistaken her for someone else? Or was she deliberately creating professional distance? "I understand," he said finally. My mistake. Your dancing, however, Tina continued, her tone warming slightly. It shows potential beyond idle choreography. If you're genuinely interested in expanding your movement vocabulary, the intermediate contemporary Thursday workshop would suit your skill level. It wasn't the connection Jake had hoped for, but it was a small opening. I'll be there. With permission forms for any recording, he added with a self-deprecating smile. Tina nodded, gathering the last of her belongings. Good. And Jake? Yes. Try leaving your C7 techniques at the door next time. Contemporary dance requires vulnerability, not perfection. With that parting challenge, she left Jake alone in the studio, surrounded by mirrors reflecting his contemplative expression at him from every angle. The Coffee Compass became the unofficial headquarters for C7's dating project. In this neutral space, members could meet without attracting the suspicion that comes with gathering at more trendy spots. The cafe's owners, the One Sisters, quickly figured out the schedule of idol visits but kept their discretion, which the members appreciated. This morning, 3 C7 members gathered at a corner table as the cafe settled into its mid-morning lull. John sipped on an Ethiopian pour-over while Silas scowled at his laptop, headphones firmly isolating him from the world. Roman completed the group, wearing reading glasses perched on his nose as he annotated an academic article. Behind the counter, Yejeon wiped equipment while her twin sister Sujeon arranged pastries in the display case. Both kept a casual eye on the idol table, their matching bobs swinging as they moved synchronically through their duties. That is the third time this week, Sujeon murmured to her sister. Always different combinations of members, never the whole group together. They are being strategic, Yejeon replied quietly. Less noticeable that way. Still not fooling anyone, Sujeon noted. Customers have noticed C7's sudden interest in our humble establishment. As long as they don't post about it online, I am not complaining about the business. Yejeon glanced at the members again. Though I am curious about what they are doing. 10,001 says they are planning a surprise comeback, Sujeon wagered. Secret meetings, away from their company building. Yejeon studied the 3 idols thoughtfully. I don't think so. They interact differently, less formal. And have you noticed they're always talking about women? Sujeon's eyes widened. No way. Yejeon confirmed. Yesterday I heard the tall one, Roman, asking the oldest one for advice about museum etiquette for non-museum dates. The sisters exchanged significant looks. C7 dating, Sujeon whispered, awe and amusement mingling in her voice. Their fans would spontaneously combust if they knew. Which is exactly why we are going to maintain absolute discretion, Yejeon reminded her firmly. Of course, Sujeon agreed quickly. But between us. A mischievous smile spread across her face. Want to bet on which one succeeds first? Yejeon pretended to consider the ethical implications for approximately 3 seconds, before leaning closer. 20,000 on the worldwide, handsome John. He's been meeting that food critic woman here twice already. Too obvious, Sujeon countered. I am putting 30,000 on the quiet fashion icon Vic. He barely talks, but when he does, he's got that intense poet vibe that certain women love. The youngest one is a dark horse candidate, Yejeon hoped. He's got that innocent appeal. What about the dancing sunshine one? Julian? Sujeon suggested. Always smiling, boundless energy. Good chance, both sisters concluded simultaneously. Their betting discussion was interrupted when the cafe door opened, admitting a harried-looking young man who resembled C7's James. Evan, Yejeon greeted him. Your usual. Evan nodded, suppressing a cough. Extra honey, please. And some of that ginger tea you make. Coming right up, Sujeon said, already preparing his order. You don't look well. Just a cold, Evan rasped, his voice noticeably hoarse. Bad timing, though. I have parent-teacher observations tomorrow. John noticed Evan's arrival at the corner table and waved him over. The teacher approached, keeping a cautious distance. Don't get too close, Evan warned, coughing into his elbow. I am probably contagious. John studied him with brotherly concern. You look terrible. Thanks, Evan deadpanned, accepting his tea from Yijin. Just what every man wants to hear. Seriously, you should be in bed, Roman observed, removing his reading glasses. That cough sounds nasty. Can't, Evan sighed. Tomorrow is Parent Observation Day at school. Been planned for months. Parents take time off work to attend. Can't someone cover for you? Silas asked, finally removing his headphones. A strange expression crossed Evan's face, deliberation mingled with resignation. That is why I stopped by. Is James around? John's eyebrows shot up. You are not thinking. Desperate times, Evan croaked before dissolving into another coughing fit. James? Teaching kindergarten. Silas looked alarmed by the prospect. Those poor children. It is just for the morning, Evan explained between coughs. The lesson plans are all written out. He needs to follow them exactly. The three idols exchanged skeptical glances, imagining the chaos that would ensue if their bandmate attempted to control a classroom of 5-year-olds. There is a slight problem with your plan, Roman pointed out. James knows absolutely nothing about teaching children. He teaches dance to trainees, Evan argued weakly. Trainees who are terrified of disappointing him, John countered. Slightly different dynamic from kindergartners. I wouldn't ask if I had any other option, Evan said, desperation in his reddened eyes. My principal already thinks I am not serious about teaching because of my celebrity connection. If I miss observation day. John's expression softened at the terrifying concern in Evan's voice. Have you asked James yet? I am heading to your dorm next, Evan admitted. Thought I'd get moral support from you three first. Oh, we are coming along for this conversation, Silas said, closing his laptop with sudden interest. This I have to see. Totally not, James declared, backing away from his twin as if Evan's cold were the plague. Have you lost your mind? I can't teach children. James adamantly refused his brother's desperate request, while the other present members, John, Silas, Roman, and a newly arrived Julian, watched with varying degrees of glee. It is just for the morning, Evan pleaded, his voice growing raspier by the minute. 3 hours max. 3 hours with 25 children? James looked terrified by the prospect. I don't know the first thing about kindergarten. The lesson plans are completely detailed, Evan assured him, handing over a blue folder. They have step-by-step instructions. Even you can follow them. What is that supposed to mean? James bristled. It means you are not exactly known for your attention to detail outside of choreography, Evan said bluntly, then softened his approach. Please, James. I have never missed a day of work. My students are counting on me. James flipped through the folder with apprehension. What is the morning circle? What's the hello song? What is rainbow writing? All explained in the notes, Evan promised, suppressing another cough. What if the kids realize I am not you? James worried, panic registering in his voice. They are 5, Evan reminded him. As long as you are approximately my height and have my face, they will accept pretty much any explanation for any differences they notice. Julian bounced excitedly on the couch cushions. You should do it. It's perfect for our project, experiencing regular life. Masquerading as my brother to teach kindergarten is utterly ridiculous, James protested. On the other hand, Roman contemplated, it is remarkably aligned with Director Blake's directive to expand our perspectives beyond the idol industry. See, Evan seized on this support. It is professional development. James looked at John, hoping the eldest would be the voice of reason. Bro, tell them this is insane. John studied both twins for a moment, his expression unreadable. When exactly is this parent observation day? Tomorrow morning, Evan answered, hope creeping into his voice at John's neutral response. And James's schedule tomorrow? John asked. Silas checked his phone. Studio time is from 2 p.m. to 5 p.m., and vocal coaching is at 5 p.m. The morning is free. Traitors, James muttered. You are all traitors. I think you should do it, John finally declared, surprising everyone with his decisive support for the plan. What? Why? James demanded. Because your brother needs help, John said. And because experiencing life completely outside your comfort zone is exactly what this break is supposed to be about. Also, because it will be hilarious, Julian added, earning a sharp elbow from Roman. What about Manager Kando? James tried, grasping for any excuse at all. He would never approve of this. We don't need to involve him, Silas pointed out reasonably. Your morning is free. What you do with your free time is your business. James looked at his brother's miserable, pleading expression, and felt his resolve weaken. Despite their different paths in life, they had always supported each other in times of need, and Evan considered this an emergency. If this is a massive if I agree to this insanity, James began cautiously, what exactly would I need to do? Relief flooded Evan's face. Just follow the lesson plans exactly. Everything is written out, in 15-minute increments. The teaching assistants will handle any real problems. You have to be me for one morning. That is the part that concerns me, James admitted. I don't know how to be you. I don't know your teaching style, or how you talk to children. Just be calmer, speak convincingly, and do not dance, Evan advised through another coughing fit. Oh, and my class has a pet fish named Mr. Bubbles. If he is floating upside down, please handle that crisis before the children notice. This is a terrible idea, James muttered, but his tone had improved from outright refusal to reluctant consideration. Is that a yes? Evan pressed. James sighed deeply, already regretting his following words. I must be out of my mind, but fine. Yes. For you, not for these traitors. He gestured at his bandmates, who made no effort to hide their delighted anticipation of the inevitable disaster. Thank you, Evan said with genuine gratitude. I owe you tremendously. Yes, you do, James surrendered. And I will collect on that debt when you least expect it. Fair enough, Evan conceded. Now let's review the important details about my class. As Evan began briefing his brother on classroom procedures, student names, and potential challenges, the other members exchanged inquisitive glances, silently acknowledging that tomorrow would either be James's finest performance or a spectacular failure that none would ever let him forget. Either way, C7's dating project had unexpectedly turned into an elementary education project. The following morning dawned crisp and clear, offering no weather excuse for James to cancel his commitment. He faced the mirror in Evan's apartment bathroom, adjusting the unfamiliar outfit his brother had laid out, casual slacks, a button-up shirt, and a cardigan that felt like a costume from someone else's life. You look exactly like me, but completely wrong, Evan observed from the doorway, still in his pajamas, and looking much worse than he did the day before. That is confusing and unhelpful, James replied, fidgeting with the unfamiliar clothes. What specifically is wrong? Your posture, Evan demonstrated, relaxing his shoulders and softening his stance. You are standing like you are about to begin a concert. I stand like someone who isn't constantly aware of being filmed. James attempted to mimic his brother's casual posture, feeling oddly vulnerable without his stance. Better, Evan approved. Now your expressions. You have this intensity when you focus. I am more approachable. So I should look less competent? James clarified dryly. You should look less like you are about to critique someone's dance technique, and more like you're about to read The Very Hungry Caterpillar for the 1,000th time and still find it delightful, Evan corrected. James practiced a milder expression in the mirror, finding it strange how different his face could appear with subtle changes. The children will probably notice something is different, Evan warned, but they are surprisingly adaptable. If they ask, say you are trying a new teacher style today. And the parents? James asked nervously. Most won't know me well enough to notice small differences. The principal might, but she will be busy observing multiple classrooms. Just follow the lesson plans exactly, and you will be fine. James was not convinced he would be fine, but he was committed now. He carefully placed Evan's wire-rimmed glasses on his face, glasses his brother didn't need but wore to complete his scholarly image. Remember, absolutely no dancing, Evan reminded him sternly. Kindergarten activity breaks are simple moves, not idle synchronized dances. Got it. Nobody rolls during the hello song, James promised. And Muse will be there, Evan added casually, as if this were an afterthought rather than critical information. James whirled to face his brother. What? You didn't mention that yesterday. Didn't I? Evan feigned innocence despite his congested state. She is doing a special presentation on physical movement for early childhood development. It is on the schedule. Are you kidding me? James's panic returned full force. She will know I am not you. Probably, Evan agreed calmly. She is perceptive. But she is also kind and understanding. Just be honest with her if she figures it out. Be honest about deceiving an entire classroom of children and their parents? James clarified incredulously. When you put it that way, it does sound ethically questionable, Evan admitted. But it is too late to back out now. The substitute teacher list is already exhausted, so I am asking you. James checked his watch, Evan's analog watch, which felt strange on his wrist. I should go. The lesson plan says to arrive 45 minutes before the children. One last thing, Evan called as James gathered the blue folder and his brother's messenger bag. The most important rule of teaching young children. What is that? James asked, bracing for crucial wisdom. Never let them see fear, Evan said solemnly. Like velociraptors, they can sense weakness. Very funny, James muttered, though the joke did little to calm his nerves. I am only half joking, Evan called after him. Good luck, brother. Try not to traumatize my students. Sunshine Kindergarten lived up to its name, with bright yellow walls and a rainbow-painted entrance that immediately made James feel out of place. He followed Evan's instructions, signing in at the main office where a harried secretary barely glanced at him before handing over a classroom key. Several parents are already waiting in the observation area, Teacher Evan, she informed him. Principal Kim will be by during the morning circle. James nodded, not trusting himself to speak more than necessary. He went through colorful hallways decorated with children's artwork until he reached Evan's classroom, room 7, appropriately enough. Taking a deep breath, he unlocked the door and entered what felt like an alien world. The classroom was scrupulously organized into learning centers, with tiny chairs and tables arranged in groups. Alphabet charts, number lines, and student artwork covered the walls. A reading corner featured a small carpet and bookshelves, while a play area contained child-sized furniture and costumes. Following Evan's notes, James began preparing for the day, writing the date on the board, setting out name tags at each place, and arranging materials for the morning activities. He checked on Mr. Bubbles, thankfully swimming upright, and reviewed the lesson plan one final time. The classroom door opened, nearly causing James to jump out of his skin. Still, only the teaching assistant, a university student named Hope, not to be confused with Julian's Hope, would help manage the classroom. "Good morning, Teacher Evan," she greeted cheerfully. "Ready for observation day?" "As ready as possible," James replied, trying to match Evan's more formal speech pattern. "You sound hoarse," Hope noted with concern. "Are you feeling all right?" "Just a slight cold," James explained, making a mental note to blame any strange behavior on illness. Hope nodded sympathetically and began helping with preparations. As they worked, she chatted about the students, providing James with valuable context that Evan hadn't had time to share. "Muse called," Hope mentioned casually. "She is running a few minutes late, but will be here before the movement activity. She asked if you needed any special equipment set up." "Whatever she usually uses is fine," James replied vaguely, having no idea what a physical development movement might entail. The classroom began to fill with children, each greeted at the door by Hope, while James maintained a slightly panicked smile that he hoped would appear teacher-like. Parents escorted their children, some lingering to chat briefly before moving to the observation area, a sectioned-off part of the room with adult-sized chairs. "Good morning, Teacher Evan," the children chorused as they found their seats, seemingly unconcerned by James's slightly different appearance. "Good morning, everyone," James replied, attempting to channel his brother's calm authority. "We have a special day planned." The morning circle proceeded surprisingly smoothly. James followed Evan's detailed notes, while Hope quietly assisted. The children shared their weekend stories, sang the Hello song which James quickly picked up, and reviewed the day's schedule. Principal Kim observed for 10 minutes before nodding approvingly and moving on to the next classroom, much to James's relief. The parents seemed equally satisfied, some taking notes while others watched proudly. James began to relax slightly, thinking perhaps he could pull this off after all, until the classroom door opened again, admitting a whirlwind of color and energy in the shape of Muse. She wore paint-splattered overalls over a bright turquoise top, her hair adorned with what appeared to be pencils as hair sticks. A large bag slung over her shoulder clinked mysteriously as she moved. "Sorry, I'm late, Teacher Evan," she announced cheerfully, setting her bag down with a metallic clatter. "The creative forces of the universe were against me this morning." The children erupted in excited greetings, clearly familiar with and fond of Muse. James stood frozen, hoping his brother's glasses might sufficiently disguise him. Muse turned to him, mouth open to continue her explanation when she paused. Her eyes narrowed slightly as she studied his face, head tilting in curiosity. "You look different today, Teacher Evan," she observed, voice lowered so only he could hear. "New teaching style?" James swallowed. "Trying something different. Also a slight cold." He coughed unconvincingly. Muse's expression made it clear she wasn't buying his explanation, but with a classroom full of children and observing parents, she merely nodded. "We'll talk later," she whispered, making the simple phrase sound like a promise and a threat. Turning to the class with undiminished enthusiasm, Muse clapped her hands. "Who's ready to move their bodies in amazing new ways today?" The children cheered, and James beamed at their excitement. Whatever his concerns about being discovered by Muse, he couldn't help but appreciate her easy rapport with the children. "Teacher Evan will need space for our movement activity," Muse announced. "Could you and Ms. Hope help the children move the tables?" James admired Muse for the next 45 minutes, as he led the class through creative movement exercises. Unlike the rigid, perfection-oriented dance training he was accustomed to, Muse's approach emphasized imagination and self-expression. Children became trees bending in the wind, animals moving through the jungle, and robots with rusty joints, all while learning about spatial awareness, balance, and coordination. Most surprisingly, Muse incorporated elements that reminded James of actual dance training: proper breathing techniques, core engagement, and spatial awareness, but presented them through games and imagination rather than technical instruction. Children absorbed these fundamentals, without the pressure or self-consciousness often associated with formal dance education. "Now," Muse announced as they neared the end of her session, "we need a volunteer to show us how different emotions change our movements. Teacher Evan, would you help us?" James froze momentarily before remembering he was supposed to be Teacher Evan. "Me?" "Yes, you," Muse smiled innocently, though her eyes held a challenge that made James suspect she knew exactly who he was. "Show us how your body moves when you're happy." Put on the spot, James hesitated. His instinct was to demonstrate with precise, choreographed movements, but he knew that would give him away immediately. Instead, he awkwardly jumped up and down with his arms raised, a crude approximation of joy that made several parents chuckle. "Wonderful," Muse encouraged, though he could see amusement dancing in her eyes. "And now sad." James hunched his shoulders and dragged his feet, making his best impression of untrained movement, rather than the carefully crafted performance of sadness he'd perfected for C7's more emotional songs. "Perfect," Muse nodded. "And now can you show us embarrassed?" That one required no acting whatsoever. James's face flushed as he demonstrated, acutely aware of Muse's knowing gaze. "Thank you, Teacher Evan," she said sweetly. "Children, thank Teacher Evan for being such a good sport." "Thank you, Teacher Evan," the class chanted. The remainder of the morning proceeded without incident. The children practiced writing the letter P using the mysterious rainbow method, tracing the same letter multiple times with different colored markers, listened to a penguin story, and completed an art project involving painted handprints. James gradually relaxed into the role, guided by Evan's meticulous notes and Hope's subtle assistance. Surprisingly, the children accepted his mistakes, and their openness and enthusiasm created a forgiving atmosphere unlike anything he was accustomed to in his perfectionist world. As the parents departed and the children prepared for lunch, Muse approached James again. "Not bad, Teacher Evan," she said quietly, emphasizing the name in a way that confirmed his cover was blown. "Though your penguin dance needs work." "I have no idea what you're talking about," James maintained weakly. "I always teach this way." Muse laughed. Evan mentioned he had an identical twin, but he failed to mention his brother would be impersonating him today. James sighed, giving up the pretense. How obvious was it? To the children and parents? Not very. To someone who's recently spent time with Evan. Immediately apparent. She studied him, curiously. "So you're the idol twin." "James," he confirmed, extending his hand formally. "James." "Muse Song," she replied, shaking his hand with a firm grip. "Child development specialist, and now an accomplice to educational fraud." Despite her words, her tone remained light, her eyes sparkling with amusement rather than judgment. "Evan has a terrible cold," James explained quickly. "He never misses work, and this observation day was important, so I stepped in to help your brother," Muse finished for him. "That's rather sweet." James blinked, not expecting this positive interpretation of his deception. "Though your happy demonstration was possibly the most constrained expression of joy I've ever witnessed," she added teasingly. "Do they not allow real emotions in idol land?" "We express plenty of emotions," James defended. "They're just choreographed." "Precisely planned joy doesn't sound particularly joyful," Muse observed. "But what do I know? I work with 5-year-olds who feel everything at maximum volume, with zero restraint." Before James could respond, Hope informed him that the children were ready for lunch in the cafeteria. Muse gathered her materials and prepared to leave. "Will you tell Evan I stopped by his apartment later?" she asked. "I have some ginger tea that works wonders for colds." "Of course," James agreed, then gathered his courage. "And maybe when he's feeling better, we could have coffee? Since you know about the twin situation now." Muse tilted her head, viewing him with interest. "The 3 of us? That's an unusual suggestion." Well, you're Evan's friend, James explained awkwardly. But since you've met me under a pretense, I thought properly introducing myself might be nice. As myself, not as my brother pretending to be me. Muse laughed, the sound bright and unrestrained. That sentence was an adventure from start to finish. But yes, I'd like that. She shouldered her bag of supplies. I'm curious to see how different the real James is from teacher Evan. Probably more coordinated, but worse with finger paint, James admitted. We all have our strengths, Muse grinned. Though I must say, for someone who performs in front of thousands, you look terrified of 25 kindergartners. Different audience, different terror, James explained. Concert audiences don't ask why the sky is blue and expect a scientifically accurate answer. Muse's laughter followed her out the door, leaving James with the strange sensation of having both failed at his deception and succeeded at something. So she knew? Evan asked that afternoon, sipping the ginger tea Muse had delivered to his apartment. His voice remained raspy, but his spirits improved considerably after James reported that the observation day had proceeded without a significant incident. Almost immediately, James confirmed, sprawled on his brother's couch in his clothes, having gratefully changed out of the teacher outfit. But she was cool about it. Even though it was nice that I helped you out. Muse is perceptive, Evan nodded. She works with children all day. She's developed a sixth sense for when someone is not being truthful. She said she'd be interested in meeting for coffee with both of us, James mentioned, aiming for casual. Evan raised an eyebrow. Did she? Interesting. Don't read too much into it, James said quickly. She's probably just curious about the twin dynamic. MMHMM, Evan hummed noncommittally. And your interest in including me in this coffee date is purely? Courtesy, James supplied. Since she's your friend first. Right, Evan nodded, poorly concealing a smile. Nothing to do with you being nervous about talking to her alone. I talk to women alone all the time, James protested. Fans and staff don't count, Evan pointed out. When was the last time you had a real conversation with a woman who wasn't required by contract to be nice to you? James opened his mouth to argue, then closed it, realizing his brother had a valid point. That's what I thought, Evan said, not unkindly. Look, if you want to get to know Muse, I'm not opposed. She's great. But be straight with her from the beginning. She values honesty above almost everything else. I'm not a liar, James insisted. Are you? Evan challenged gently. Or are you so used to being C7's James that you've forgotten how to be James? The question hit home uncomfortably, echoing thoughts that had been troubling James since the start of the dating project. Before he could respond, his phone pinged with a message from manager Kando, reminding him of his studio session. Saved by the schedule, Evan observed. But think about it, brother. This break is your chance to rediscover who you are. James nodded, gathering his things. For what it's worth, your job is terrifying. I'd rather perform in a stadium than try to explain why the letter P makes the sound it does to 25 children. Different skills, Evan smiled. I'd probably faint if I had to dance in front of thousands. As the twins said goodbye, James reflected on the morning's experience. Despite the stress and deception, something about the kindergarten classroom felt refreshingly honest. The children's unfiltered responses, Muse's playful challenges, and even the chaotic art project all had a quality of naive expression that was often missing from his carefully organized idol life. Perhaps that was what Director Blake had meant about personal growth, James hoped, as he headed to the studio. Not just a dating experience, but a reconnection with authenticity. This kind could not be choreographed or scripted. And maybe Muse, with her sunshine personality and unfiltered opinions, was the person to help him remember how to be messily human again.